Yo, what's up YouTube? Jerry Dan Gaming coming back with another Rise of Kingdoms video, and today we are going to talk about the changes that actually need to happen in Rise of Kingdoms. Yes, the graphics update, the engine update that are upcoming, those are all going to be really nice to get. They're going to be really refreshing for the old players. They're going to be really nice for the new players, or to attract new players to come into the game. But there seems to be a problem with getting players to stick to the game, and I think there's a little petition going around that is going to address a lot of these issues, a lot of the core issues within Rise of Kingdoms that some other content creators have talked about. So if you guys haven't seen this petition, we are going to go over it now, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. So I have to thank Ruz and also my buddy Ray for sending this over to me. Also, please hit that like button, consider subscribing. This is take 2. I had audio issues the first time I did this. I spent 30 minutes recording a video and I couldn't use any of it, so it would be greatly appreciated. Hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. So this is going to be a petition that has been going around pretty much. It was kind of developed, I believe, a chunk of it, a large chunk, by 1093, but then a bunch of other kingdoms have had their hand in this thing. So thank you to 1093, to all those kingdoms, to Ruz, to Ray, to kind of bringing this to light for me and to the player base and the community of Rise of Kingdoms, because I do believe that some of these points really resonate and are kind of changes that need to happen within Rise of Kingdoms before we get the new graphics and engine update, and I'll explain to you why a little bit later in the video. But without further ado, let's just jump into this petition here. So I'm just going to start reading this off. Thank you to everyone in the community who took part in these conversations. Many other factors were brought up, both as causes and casualties to the decline in average seed power. Following suggestions are a result of feedback from many different kingdoms and are most generally agreed upon issues. As of 6/13, the developers have said that they have plans to address a few of these, but it doesn't hurt to let them know how many people strongly agree with even further changes. If you're a big spender with access to a higher levels of customer service, we ask that you pass this petition along and add your support as well. So as of today, on June 19th, there are 253 kingdoms that have signed, and a total of 622 players that have signed this petition. I have been one of them. Some of my friends in 2581 have shared it. I'm going to leave the link of this petition in the description below. You can also find it in my announcements in my Discord, which is also linked down below. So be sure to check both of those out. Now let's get into some of these main issues that I think the player base can largely agree that Rise of Kingdoms has been having. So, Autarch Changes. Issues. The current system discourages cooperation between camps, leading to betrayals and other gameplay that is very demotivating and not fun, both for leadership and players. I know exactly where this is coming from. So I signed this petition. I'm in 2975 right now. I am no longer in leadership, council, king, or whatever, but I spent a large chunk of almost half of my Rise of Kingdoms career, if you want to say, developing and leading a kingdom. I was a king for Kingdom 2581, and I'll tell you right now that those end game rewards are very daunting to negotiate for, and the addition of these Autarch changes, the stars, I understand that you kind of need to sweeten the pot a little bit and kind of make the end gameplay a little bit more exciting, but the Autarch changes, there just doesn't seem to be enough, and there's some suggestions here that kind of help to alleviate some of these problems. So here are the suggestions. Adjust the distribution ratio of inscriptions. Adjust distribution ratio of inscriptions to a maximum of 60/40. This would reduce the imbalance within alliances and allow more kingdoms to receive fair rewards. Individual inscription acquisition through achievements. Allow individuals to earn inscriptions through achievement milestones. This would motivate members of losing factions to participate in wars. You can be out of a KVK relatively early, and because a lot of players, because a large majority of the player base is free to play, and these people are playing for rewards, essentially, if you're knocked out of a KVK relatively quickly, you're not going to keep participating in the KVK. But if you get some of these Autarch inscriptions in there, which is kind of like the cherry on top right now, this is one of the better end game rewards that you can obtain, it's going to motivate players to keep pushing forward with the KVK. Then there's also replacing ziggurat occupation rewards. Replace the ziggurat occupation rewards with more transmutation stones or more transmutation crystals and other rewards. This would shift the focus of wars to diverse rewards rather than just the zig. And then you can see here that individual inscription acquisition through achievements is already something that the developers have stated that there's going to be some form of this in the patch in August patch 1084. Increased catch-up mechanics for younger kingdoms. Issues. Currently, most kingdoms purge 400 to 500 of their native players as soon as they enter Season of Conquest. As a result, new servers are added to the game, which spreads out the total population, but new population is not added. Improve the overall experience for younger kingdoms so less of them quit before entering Season of Conquest. Again, I can attest to this. I developed a relatively new kingdom in Kingdom 2581. We had tons of native players. We have one in particular, shout out to Mama Nem. She's a kind of like a mid-spender, and as a mid-spender putting a decent amount of money into the game, she still has yet to have 5 marches, and it's going on 2.5 years now of gameplay that she started her account. Look, I know it's taken many of us a long time to kind of develop those 5 marches, but because of the way that the game was structured back in the day, we were using five commander marches that kind of necessarily didn't make sense or weren't meta, and it was kind of okay. Now, because of the large power gap from non-season conquest commanders to SOC commanders, you really need to kind of hoard up and save so much in order just to be relevant in Season of Conquest, and at most that's probably going to give you 2 to 3 marches. Shout out to my buddy Contronics, who has done an amazing job on his account, but he only has 3 marches still, and it's 2.5 years. That's way too long for these players to kind of get up and going. Everyone wants to field at least 5 marches in Season of Conquest and feel like they're actually relevant to their kingdom. So let's get into the suggestions. The rewards in KVK 1 should be increased, and there should be a new player bonus event like Lucerne Scroll, but a full year. The event should help new players to speed up making 5 semi-decent marches and unlocking T5 if you are active by giving extra materials, research and building speeds, blueprints, and gold heads for the first year of play. This is great. This is honestly great. This is what they need. Because in a year of hoarding, right, I think rule of thumb is that free to play can probably max 1 commander, right? And that commander most likely is going to be YSG, thanks to the museum buffs and some of the other, I guess, commander pairings. He is still relevant. He's kind of clinging on to life, but he is still really good. I was using him in my KVK paired behind ZL. So he definitely does work, but again, it takes a full year for a free to play to obtain enough sculptures to max a commander, and I feel like that's just a little bit too long. For these new players, I should say, to get up and running for Season of Conquest, which is end gameplay for Rise of Kingdoms. Increase the off-season time between KVK 3 and KVK 4. Currently, it can be as short as 10 days, which is not enough time for young players to recover resources, speeds, while still trying to grow their accounts, and is unnecessarily stressful for young leadership, causing many to quit and give up. So, for the OGs out there, when KVK first became a thing, before we had all these like intricate registration systems and all that, we used to have like break periods in between KVKs that lasted like it was like 3 months. It was a long time. And I know we're talking about KVK 3 to KVK 4, but I've experienced this as well when I was in leadership in 2581, and 10 days is not enough. That is crazy. You can't just rush players in. And since they've kind of added some mechanics to allow you to gain access to these SOC commanders, I don't understand why they're trying to rush you into a KVK and be like, here you go, welcome to the new world, and have fun getting wrecked. So I definitely highly agree with both of these suggestions. New kingdoms every few days does still make sense with the volume of new players coming to this game, but eventually KVK2 migration will decide the future of these kingdoms. Too many kingdoms get wrecked by illegal migration, and it ruins the game for their entire native population, which causes many to install. So to decrease the chance of having a dead new kingdom, we need to make KVK2 migration better with approval system that will lower the chance of a new kingdom getting ruined and improve new player experience 1,000,000%. And I am so sorry. I was in this. Like, I was in the heat of this with my leadership crew in 2581, and I apologize to the Rise of Kingdoms community for not maybe being a bigger voice on this. I don't know how many other content creators were part of a newer-ish jumper project that was exposed to this. You talk about creating a jumper, creating a kingdom that you kind of see in your vision. That takes so much time. We started Kingdom 2581 in November of 2021, I want to say, and we started it in very, very early days of February 2022. So you're talking about at least 3 months of preparation. I got into KVK2 and we had a civil war, and now you're talking about almost 8 to 9 months down the road. I almost had a heart attack of how stressed I was, because I felt everything that I had worked so hard for over the past 8-9 months just slowly slipping away. And this holds so true. This was something that we were like, all right, everyone, be ready. We can't, and also too, like in KVK1, if you kind of blow your reputation, you're gonna have people who are gonna try and snipe you with these farms and ruin your migration. So this is totally true. I apologize because I lost sight of this, and I didn't realize of how much of an impact it would have in totality. But it's very true. If you put in that much work to create a kingdom, and you fail because you get wrecked because of a stupid migration rule, because leaders do not have enough power in this game, leadership does not have enough control, you're just going to quit and uninstall. And the whole premise here, again, is trying to keep new players, because there definitely are new players coming into the game. I was just speaking to my buddy Dasher, who's in one of the new 3000 kingdoms, I think it's 3310, and he had done a few rounds of trying to create a new kingdom, and shout out to him for having the perseverance. But upon asking him, and again, in one of these new 3K kingdoms, I said, what is the player split like? And he said it's probably roughly about 60 to 70% of new players, but there's still a 30 to 40% roughly of new players coming into the game. So there still are people coming in to check out Rise of Kingdoms, but the systems aren't in place to really get a stranglehold on those players, to kind of get their grips in them per se, and keep them around for the long run. And this entire setup right here of point number 2 is directly giving you suggestions to help this. This is one of the best segments of this petition here, in my opinion. And there are other things down that we're also going to cover that kind of help the new player base and get that retention that Lilith needs on there. Point number 3, create a new feature, sleep or vacation mode. This one's a little this one's a little ballsy, but add a feature to allow players who need to take a break from the game to put their account to sleep immediately to avoid hurting their kingdom's domain matchmaking rating, and allow them to return to the game without falling behind. This would reduce the number of players quitting after feeling forced to play when they do not have time, and those quitting because they were purged as dead weight while busy in real life. While in sleep mode, the game would automatically train and claim troops, VIP gold heads, random blacksmith materials, and resources at 75% speed from normal. However, you will be unable to leave your city, participate, or claim event rewards, and cannot be attacked. You would not be able to end the sleep mode earlier than the time you set at the start. If your sleep mode ends while your kingdom is in KVK, then you'd be unable to leave Zone 4, making it difficult to abuse. That is, again, that's a little generous, but a good point nonetheless, because there are players who just need to take a break. You know, maybe they have vacations that run in with a KVK timeline, and they just cannot participate. And again, you kind of need to log in. People are logging in to get their gold heads, right? And if you allow them that ability to kind of collect those gold heads while they go away, there's more likelihood of those players actually just coming back to the game. Because if they're losing all that time, you're losing all of that accumulation of these like resources that you need for your account. You're gonna fall behind, and you're gonna find it very hard to come back and enjoy the game like you were, especially with the aggressive release of new commanders. Point number 4, allow all kingdoms to choose their battle rosters for domains. Currently, you can only choose roster if you have over 900 CH25. Most kingdoms do not have this and cannot take advantage of the system to allow their players to take breaks or exclude non-contributing accounts. As a result, many players who would have normally returned to the game are zeroed and quit instead. Either allow all kingdoms to choose their battle roster or allow all kingdoms to ban up to 25 accounts from their main domain battle roster ID. This is, again, to the point of we touched on a few times when I was doing my King's Corner podcast, especially with my buddy Ray and Plague when they were part of 2576. I believe even Maury and Yerp, we perhaps touched on this when I brought them on for my King's Corner podcast when I was doing it at the time. And Chiz even talked about this not too long ago as well in one of his videos. We're such a game about community, but the fact that if someone has an improper performance, whether that's in real life, mainly if it's in real life issues, or if they're just kind of tired of the game, these guys have to get zeroed and then they end up quitting. Like, I know if I get zeroed, it's going to be very hard for me to come back to Rise of Kingdoms. That's just my mentality with it. If I get zeroed, I most likely won't come back. And I think that's the mindset for a lot of players. And the fact that our system is set up that you have to purge dead weight at the end of a season, again, it's going to demotivate players, and it's not very community driven. While if you allow all kingdoms to choose a battle roster, again, this is giving you more control, and this is allowing you to kind of bring the roster of people that you want into your KVK. You're not going to have all these excessive purges and whatnot, and you'll give some people maybe time to find a little bit of a better kingdom that kind of suits their needs. So this is a definite must. I know when domain systems first came out, I was like, ooh, this sounds really good. But even in 2581, I don't even think in 2975, like, honestly, actually, I think we missed it. I think in 2975 we'll probably get the domain access, but in 2581 I was excited for it, and we didn't even get access to domain. So I think every kingdom should have access to it. Solutions to help solve population being spread thin. The population of Rise of Kingdoms is not increasing at the same rate as servers are being created because the new players are not sticking around in the game. This is leading to a situation where the total population is spreading out, leading to less active players in each kingdom. While it'd be very disruptive to force kingdoms to merge, many of these kingdoms might be happy to merge with others, but it's a lot of work to organize entire alliances to migrate, and many are sad to leave their alliance shells that they have worked hard on behind. Some solution for this could be found where alliance leaders could apply to migrate their whole alliance shell, and players could sign up to go with them to a new kingdom, but only under a certain seed or only one incoming shell per season. This is, again, a great point. We have talked about this as well in King's Corner podcast and even on my streams, that there's too many dead kingdoms, and there needs to be a way to potentially merge them and consolidate the server somehow. It's a lot of work to recruit new players. If your kingdom is low seed, maybe players could apply to be matched with kingdoms who are looking for players through some type of in-game recruitment hub, or making it easier for players to find a new kingdom that will suit them. Variation of this is under consideration already. They already have a mechanic that's on this already to an extent. If you leave an account logged off for like 30 days or so, when you come back to the screen, it'll ask you if you want to migrate. I think it's actually more of like a creation account, like if you want to create an account in a new kingdom, and it kind of gives you some suggestions, but there's already some kind of mechanic in here. So having I guess kingdoms be able to register onto some form of table and saying, hey, we're CC'd and we're looking for this kind of player. So just a little bit easier of an in-game function, I think, is a good suggestion. At the same time, migration is a big investment of credits or money for older players. Sometimes a new kingdom does not work out, and the grind to afford it to do it again is too much, as they just quit. Some solution to this should be found. A variation of this is under consideration already. So there's been some adjustments, right? You have the ability to have a cheaper migration while you're in KVK, which I think is a nice step, but even I'm under this right now. So we're in 2975. We just took an extremely hard KVK. I don't know what the circumstances of this losing this KVK is going to lead to, but I'll tell you right now, if things blow up and go to shit, I'm stuck. I do not have the passports. I do not have the alliance credits. Do I want to spend the money just to move my account? No. And I actually missed this too, because I was supposed to meet up with my buddy Egg and Hunky a few kingdoms ago, after Egg had left 2581, he went to a kingdom to meet up with Hunky. That kingdom did not pan out well. They migrated within a few months, and then they ended up in 2975. If I did that with them, I would have been stuck in that kingdom, and I would have been screwed, and I wouldn't be able to make content. I would not be able to make content. I would have to take, you know, the little revenue that I get from making YouTube videos and streaming, scrounge that together to buy these New World bundles. I'm just an aggressive player. I don't really stock up Alliance credits. I usually need them for teleports through KVKs. So I do agree here. There is a huge potential to get stuck, and for forces that are totally out of your control, right? And I don't think that players should be penalized for that. So definitely agree on that point. Relax lower Imperium restrictions. This is something that I really don't have too much experience with. I've never played in Imperiums, but upon reading through it, it does kind of make sense for those who are trying to reach the upper tiers of Imperium, and it also makes sense for kingdoms who are trying to avoid Imperiums, which I do have a lot of experience with in 2581. There's no difference between bottom Imperium or top Imperium made by the game, so kingdoms feel they must either be deep Imperium or avoid Imperium at all costs. 2581, yes. The bottom Imperium rank should be made less restrictive so that high A seed kingdoms view it as a light restriction rather than a death sentence, because again, if you're in my Imperium, you can't get migrations. This way, the top 8 kingdoms will be allowed to grow instead of constantly downsizing. This is what we're experiencing in 2975 a little bit. To escape, which has caused a trickle-down effect into all seeds. Yes, agreed. Additionally, the one ticket system incentivizes Imperiums to only recruit the biggest whales that they can find. If it was more flexible, they would not feel the pressure to only recruit high spenders. The current ticket system is very inflexible, and 1 player every 30 days does not compensate for natural player loss, roughly 2 to 4 players per month per alliance. Allow for very limited but more flexible migration into Imperiums for them to maintain their alliances only, maybe a power allotment instead of 1 player ticket. Allow for significant extra migration into the bottom Imperiums to allow them to catch up to the top. And that one's placed in bold. I don't know if you guys can kind of tell on screen. This could be achieved by scaling power allotments given to kingdoms based on their rank and accumulated monthly, so it cannot be scammed by dropping to low rank temporarily. So again, I don't have much experience with this, but I know that the Imperium systems haven't really gotten much of an update since their inception. They've gotten small updates here and there, but the game is in a totally different place now. We're no longer in 3 to 4 alliance per kingdom meta. We're in a 1 to 2 alliance, and to not be able to replace players in Imperium kingdoms, like let's take one of the big dogs, for example, 1960. If they lose a player, or if they lose these 2 to 4 players per month, which is kind of average, I think that's pretty spot on, and they're only able to bring in 1, you think if they have 155 players and they lose 4, they're now down to 151, and they can only bring in 1 player. That's 152. Like, you want to try and keep your roster as full as possible, and the Imperium restrictions have trickled down into lower seeds. It is preventing kingdoms like 2975, who we're pretty high A seed. We're kind of teetering with that Imperium line. I know that they probably wanted to fill out their roster, but I believe we probably stopped at around 120 active accounts. 120, 130. I could be off a little bit, but we weren't able to fill out the roster because I know that if we pumped the kingdom with the accounts that I know that they wanted, we would have ended up in Imperium, and not a lot of kingdoms want that. There's very few people and leadership teams that want to be Imperium because it's just so much extra work. Matchmaking concerns and suggestions. This one is probably one of the best things I have read on this page in its entirety. So often active smaller kingdoms are grouped together in a camp but lack spenders or field fighters, which makes their maps difficult to balance when the meta is for total field control and swarming. The total number of field versus field type players should be a consideration, not just total active players. The Alliance Mobilization League system with promotions and demotions into easier or harder tiers could be added to make KVK leagues as well, with total occupation points of their camp at the end to help decide a kingdom moving up or down the leagues. Using alliances only would cause issues when camps are consolidating their players into single shell, and should be considered a team effort and may be combined with their kingdom ranking on the kill, dead, heal leaderboards. This way, younger kingdoms would start in lower leagues with easier competition, and kingdoms that play more casual or more difficult KVKs would be naturally grouped together. As kingdoms shrink, more are being placed in a single camp. Sometimes there are more than 5 per camp, which means even if their camps win, some kingdoms will be left out of last rewards. This causes a lot of chaos and mess for these leaders, which is not enjoyable. Some solution to this should be found, even if it's just the increase of coalition limit for maps that have more than 5 kingdoms in a camp. Yes, that is pivotal. Like, again, you're putting it's a function of their own demise in a way for Lilith, where they simply need to just stuff KVK maps with enough kingdoms to have enough active players. But then when it comes down to it, some of those kingdoms are being left out of end reward discussions because there's too many to fit into a coalition. That's ridiculous. We've seen some of these maps have like 5, 6, 7, 8 kingdoms per camp, and like, it's just not fair. There's no, again, you need to induce community. You don't want to disparage it, and that's one function that's doing so. This second point is the best one by far. This adds, again, the alliance mobilization system. It gives you relegation zones for your kingdom in KVKs. This is probably the best thing. If Lilith doesn't want to give leadership more control, whether that's through domains and allowing kingdoms to pick their rosters of who they want to bring into KVK, which is ultimately going to affect the matchmaking rating. Adding a relegation system for KVKs is probably the best thing that the game can experience. It's all there. I mean, and even with the kill deads and heals, like, so much of the world in business and everything is going to data analytics, sports, all that stuff. Like, there needs to be more back end use of this data and analytics to key in for this structure. So again, really, really great petition here. It was honestly very well done. If you guys agree to these points, if you have any more concerns for Rise of Kingdoms, any other suggestions, you can fill out the link. You just have to go onto this form, of course, or onto the spreadsheet. Go onto the form. Pretty much what you're going to do is fill out your name. Make sure you put your game ID on there to make it a little bit more legitimate for Lilith when they do get their hands on this. Obviously your kingdom, and then what position you're in. If you're a king council, you can see here that I have signed here as a concerned player. So again, this is something that we need before the huge update that we're about to get. Look, we're going to get a massive marketing push with a new graphics overhaul. This is Rise of Kingdoms revamped, new graphics, new engine. It's gonna pull a lot of new players to the game. A huge core of this is really gearing for new players to influx the community and the game of Rise of Kingdoms and keep those new players as they come into the game. These are changes that we need now. We need them as soon as possible. Honestly, especially if not these matchmaking concerns and Imperiums, like, honestly, this whole entire section here is increase the catch-up mechanics, because there's not enough new players that are sticking around. They're getting wrecked by stupid migrations. They're going into SOC without proper accounts, and it's very discouraging. So again, there's a lot of changes. Autarch changes probably need to happen relatively quickly as well too, but a lot of these changes need to get rolling now. So as a community, guys, we need to come together. Check out this spreadsheet in the description down below. It's also on my Discord, which you can find in the link below in the description as well. And simply go on to the form. It's on the top and the bottom. You cannot miss it. Go on to the form, sign it. Let's help the community. Let's help the game that we love. With that, I'm out. Take care, guys. Love y'all. Have a good one. Later. Peace.